Hi, welcome to episode 28 of Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls. Thank you so much for tuning in if you're a returning viewer, and if you're new to the show, thank you so much for giving me a shot. I can be found at wellforpearls.com, and of course this is only on YouTube now. We simplified things back at the beginning of June, so I'm sorry to those who've asked about iTunes. For now, the show is not going to be on iTunes. It is Friday, June 15th? No, July 15th, and I hope that you are enjoying summer wherever you are. We are in the middle of Tour de Fleece, and I can't believe what's going on Instagram and Ravelry and on the Slack channel. There's just so much sharing and photos and cheering one another on, and it's just really cool to see. So thank you so much to the team and to everybody else who's participating, who's maybe not on Team Wool and Spinning, but is participating wherever they have found a home in terms of spinning for Tour de Fleece. So I hope you're having a wonderful time, and keep those photos coming. We gave out a couple of really awesome prizes this past Saturday, and so to the winners, congratulations. And next challenge day we're going to have a whole bunch more to hand out, so that'll be really fun. I'm not really doing Tour de Fleece per se. If anybody has noticed, I haven't been posting a ton of photos and whatnot on Instagram and on the Slack channel and in Ravelry. Part of that is because I have been spinning, but I'm not really working through my projects as fast as I would, and I've actually been sidetracked with a bunch of other stuff. And one of those things, it's silly, but I'll tell you anyways. So James, he's my eldest. He's almost 4. He had this brown monkey called Chip, and it's his lovey. He's had him since he was born, and it was actually Chip version 2.0 because the first one got wrecked. And he carried this thing around with him anywhere and everywhere. Anybody who knows us knows that Chip goes everywhere. Anyways, on my husband's birthday back in June, him and I went out for a swanky dinner, and because he was celebrating kind of a big birthday, and we left, and my parents had the kids for the evening. James went to bed with Chip. He woke up in the morning, Chip was gone. Go figure. We have ripped the house apart. We have no idea where he is. So James started asking almost immediately for a replacement Chip from me, knit by me. And I was hoping that it would kind of pass and that he would sort of lose interest and forget about this request, I guess, for lack of a better word. Anyways, he didn't forget about it. So finally I caved, and yesterday we went up to my local yarn shop, which is 88 Stitches here in Langley in southern British Columbia, and we picked out colors for his new blanket. And so it's not going to be a lovey like Chip was. He was like a stuffed monkey. This is actually going to be the Chevron Baby blanket by Pearl Soho. So I'm in the midst of garter stitch on a garter stitch island in the middle of nowhere, it feels like, with superwash. So it has to be functional. It has to be able to go into the washing machine. It is what it is. And he picked awesome colors. The owner of the shop will testify that he really picked some awesome colors, and it's going to make this, it's a 5, I only chose 5 colors instead of 7 from the original pattern. It's going to be a little bit smaller. And I'll show it to you guys when it's done, because that's what's been taking up all my time. So anyways, a little sidetracked there, but that's what's been going on here. I wanted to make a couple of quick announcements because Canada Post has declared a 30-day cooling off period. So thankfully, how that affects us and why that's important is Fiber Club has been mailed out, and the mug giveaway for this month has been mailed out. I wanted to get it out sooner rather than later, just in case they do escalate job action. So for those who are in the Fiber Club, your fiber is on its way. And for the mug drawing, I've never mentioned it on the show before, but basically how it works is anybody who's a Patreon subscriber is entered every month to be entered to win a mug from me. And it's the people who signed up the month before. So anybody who signed up in July, you'll be entered in August, and anybody who signed up in June, you were entered. So because June was our first month, we had, I can't remember how many people, I think we had 15 in this month's draw. So anyways, this is what the mug looks like. And as I said, the person who won, it's already on the way. Sorry for the glare. They're really simple, just coffee mugs, fit in your hand, in your wrist, in your palm of your hand, sorry. So anyways, the person who won this month was Charlene. So congratulations, Charlene. And I've already put it in the mail, so it's already on the way to you in Virginia. So congratulations to Charlene. And in August, we'll have another draw, in September and October. And so it'll probably usually be on the second show of the month when the draw is, because I'm hoping that my schedule will be that Fiber Club will always go out around the 15th of the month. So that's kind of housekeeping wise sort of the plan. So that's been mailed, and Fiber Club has been mailed. So that's awesome. So in terms of my projects, I have a couple of finished things. For those who are in the Sweet Georgia Yarns Club and you Fiber Club and you don't want to see spoilers, this is a spoiler for July's Fiber Club. So maybe avert your eyes for a minute. It hasn't been washed yet. It was called Odyssey. And this is what it looks like. So I split the braid in half lengthwise, so vertically, and I set half of the fiber aside and put it, I kind of put it out of my mind while I was spinning the one on top, which is Navajo plied. I split the top one 5 times. Now I'm forgetting. Oh my goodness, I didn't write it down. I think I split it 5 times, and then I just spun each end to end. And then I Navajo plied on my Schneider spindle Steampunk. And then the one on the bottom, when I was finished this one, I didn't know what to do with the other half. I was thinking a traditional 3-ply. And there's been a lot of chatter online about doing socks that are Navajo plied, striped with traditional 3-plies. And Knitwhip Vic, who's Vicky, who's been very active on the Ravelry group, she has done a couple of at least 2 pairs of socks that are like that. Anyways, I decided to actually do a 3-ply fractal. So this is a fractal. I took the first, I stripped it again 3 times, which was getting quite thin. It was a little bit hard to do, but I spun it. So I spun one end to end, and I spun this all on my medium Kapar spindle, and that's from Natural Knotwood Designs, which is a Canadian spindle company in Manitoba. And then the second I divided it 3 times, and then the third strip I divided 6 times, but it got too thin and it was actually starting to fall apart, so it ended up being like 5.5 times. So that was that, and I really like this finished yarn. It's interesting and it's textured. You get the pop of the brown and that almost like a gray brown against the teal blue. I think it's really interesting. I really actually have ended up quite liking this one, but it's definitely not as interesting as this one. And those of you, I was saying to my friend Katrina, who's Crafty Jacks on Instagram and has been quite active in the Slack channel. She's a really good friend of mine, and I was saying to her that, you know, it doesn't really matter what the fiber is. It doesn't matter if the colors are complements and so have a higher tendency to muddy. It really doesn't matter. I will always choose the blended 3-ply, always, when it comes to these hand spun yarns. I just love them. I think they're really interesting, and because the singles are slightly thicker, there's not actually a ton of optical mixing that happens, so the amount of muddying that you're going to get is actually quite low when compared to what would happen if the yarn was even finer. The other thing too is because this is sock weight, it's quite dark because it's quite thinly spun, and I just really like the look of that. So from a distance, it actually is quite, it looks quite a bit darker than the Navajo plied one, which I think is really interesting. So really effective. I really enjoyed that spin. It took 8 days from start till finish, and I have to admit I didn't work on anything else, and I haven't washed them yet. I showed this to you guys, was it last week? This was my West Coast Color and Carding BFL Silk, and I actually have the rest of this on my spindle. I'm talking away from the mic, so that's not, I hope I'm not fading in and out too much. So I'm spinning this quite a bit finer than I spun this. So this was, I was going for a worsted weight 2-ply. This is going to be Navajo plied. And I'm hoping for a light sport heavy fingering. And this is going to be something for me. And I have this much left over. Those are my new stickers. Anybody in Fiber Club just got a bag with a woolen spinning sticker on them. It was a free gift, and so I took it. Yeah, so that is going to be Navajo Plaid, and I'm looking forward to photographing these two next to each other because the Navajo Plaid is going to look very different from the worsted 2-ply. Partly because this is finer, but also because this braid is a little bit darker. So I had this, and for those of you who follow me on Instagram, James requested a pair of a scarf from this yarn, because remember he commandeered this yarn, and I didn't have enough. I'm going to knit him a cowl with what's left of this. I have some BFL silk that's undyed in my stash, and I'm going to stripe it and make a cowl for him out of this. And in the meantime, I knit him up some mittens. So they are a little bit different. They are so flipping cute. I just love them. So on his little hands, he has huge hands. So I cast on, I feel like I cast on 28 stitches. I increased to 11 or 13 stitches for the thumb to give him lots of room. And then I gave him an extra 1/2 inch at the top of the mittens. So, yeah, he's been wanting to wear them. It's really cute. Anyways, those are for winter, and they're all photographed, and they're pretty much done, but I just love them. And I'm looking forward to finishing his cowl. Because what he wanted originally, I think I had mentioned it to you guys, he wanted a scarf. So the last thing that I've been working on is my Tour de Fleece spin. And like I said, I'm not really doing Tour de Fleece this year, really, with all the administration work behind the scenes that goes on here, and at Woolen Spinning, and also my career job, and some stuff going on at home. It was just kind of too much. So I have been kind of spinning along at my own pace. But the reason why I wanted to work on this through Tour de Fleece is I'm hoping that this spin is finished for when we, for August, so that I can knit my sweater. So this is my crossbreed wool that I've been spinning, and I did do a blog post about this stuff back on Wednesday. So if you're really interested in learning more about this, have a look there, and about the fiber and the type of sheep breeds that go into making this. Because it's local wool from the Fraser Valley, which is sort of all of the southern part of British Columbia, the southwestern part of British Columbia. And it's very heathered, has a very heathered quality. This was my 2-ply sample that I did. And I have a 3-ply sample somewhere, and I used it up because I knit my swatch. So this is going to blow out because the camera is going to compensate for how dark it is. But this is the cable that is part of the sweater that I am wanting to knit. And it turned out really nicely. I'm holding it up in the air so you can kind of see it, see through it when it's right there at the camera. But against me, it just has a really lovely, it's just a really lovely fabric. I can't push my finger through it. It's got a little bit of stretch and a little bit of memory, but it's the weather here in southern British Columbia is really damp, and it's wet most of the year. Like even July this year, we're having a lot of rain in the morning, and then it clears up by the afternoon, and we get up to like 27, 29 degrees Celsius, but it was raining all morning, so now it's muggy and kind of the air is heavy. And I remember growing up, that was very typical of the type of summers we would have. And my parents actually started taking us, we always had a trailer and went camping and stuff. They started taking us down to places like California just to get some sun and get some heat, because even the Okanagan sometimes wasn't great for weather. And and then the rest of the year it's very moderate temperatures. So like often in like December will be, you know, 9, 10, 11 degrees Celsius, and it'll be raining. So you need something warm that kind of keeps the dampness out of your bones, if you will. But then you need a rain jacket over top. So in the years that I've been knitting and the number of sweaters that I've made and the number of handmade outfits I've put together, I've really realized and learned that from my own experience, I need sweaters that are not super dense and super thick. So I tend to size up my needles. So if a pattern calls for 4.5 millimeter needles, for example, I'll go up to a 5 just to give that fabric a little bit less density. It gives it a bit more drape, and sometimes it backfires because it creates a sweater that's a little bit too drapey, which is why actually I started swatching so consistently. And for one sweater, I will often do 2 or 3 swatches. That's not unusual for me. So for this particular sweater, it actually does call for 5 millimeter needles in the pattern. And I did swatch on 5 millimeter needles, but I know that my yarn, and so far this is what I've got done. So I have 6 hanks of yarn done so far. And they all look like this, so I won't pull them all out. I was going for a worsted weight with this, and because I've plied it so tightly, it's a light worsted heavy DK. So knit on 5 millimeter needles, it gives me that more open fabric that I'm looking for. So this, I just washed this. So that kind of gives you an idea. Of what the finished yarn looks like. And it's got lovely stitch definition. I really like the cable when I look at the swatch and see it worked up. And because it's spun woolen, the singles, it's a 3-ply woolen, long backwards draw woolen spun yarn. The cables, you can't see it because it's too dark, but the cables are a little tiny bit fuzzy. So they're not super defined, but it's still, because it's a 3-ply, it's still got some stitch definition that it's not completely lost when you look at it. Like I'm looking at it in real life. And you can see that there's a cable there. So yeah, I quite like that. And I did a 2x2 rib at the top to see how that would work up. And that's quite lovely and quite bouncy. And I did size down a full needle size for that. So I went from 5 millimeters to 4 millimeter needles, and I'm going to have to do that on the sweater too. It just needs that to keep the structure of the knitted fabric. So that is that spin, and I'm enjoying it. I have worked on my sweater a little bit, so that's the Falkland. I'm looking at it, that's why I'm gazing off. The top down raglan, I'm not going to show it to you this week because actually I don't really have anything more than another inch done on it, and I've shown it to you the last 2 weeks. So if you're interested in that sweater or you want to know more about that sweater knit that I'm working on right now, just head back to episode 26, and then again in 27 I show you quite a bit of my progress. So that is coming along slowly, and it's just been put a little bit on the back burner for James's new chip blanket. So, which I'll show you, I promise. It's very primary. The colors are very primary. So it's kind of hurting my eyes. I haven't worked on my American Tunis this week, and I haven't worked on my Daybreak by Stephen West. So those 2 projects are a little bit stalled, but I'm going to take them with us when we go camping in a couple weeks, and I'm hoping to get a little bit of progress done. So maybe not finished, but at least some progress. And then I've got a huge, enormous spinning project coming up for the rest of the summer, which I can't talk about. Isn't that the worst? That's the worst. And so that's actually going to be taking a lot of my time. So the spinning content for the show for the next few weeks might be a little thin, and it's just because I've been working on that and I can't talk about it. So I hope you have a wonderful Tour de Fleece. I will talk to you next week, and until then, happy spinning. Bye guys.